The top 5 overrated cards, next on Commander Replay. Welcome back, everyone. Today we're talking about the top 5 cards that I think are overrated. These are cards that used to be good, but just don't do as much as they used to, so I would probably stop running them. But with that, let's get right into it. Here we go. Number 5. Craterhoof Behemoth. So, Craterhoof Behemoth has one condition that you have to meet, which is having a lot of creatures in play. But if you don't have a lot of creatures in play, it's basically just an 8 mana 5/5, although it has haste, so I guess that's kinda cool. But the mono white deck at the table is definitely playing board wipe tribal, and the mono black deck at the table definitely has a Dictate of Erebos, so you're gonna be lucky to have like one creature in play, let alone the 3 or 4 that you need with the Craterhoof to actually win the game. And I know some of you are thinking, Craterhoof Behemoth can end the game, but there's like a 10% chance that your opponents are going to be able to interact with this Craterhoof Behemoth before your creatures can actually deal lethal damage. And that's just not a risk you can take. So I probably wouldn't run Craterhoof Behemoth anymore because you're going to need at least 3 creatures in play if you actually want to be able to do anything with it, and that's just a really tough hurdle to clear right now with the state of Commander. Moving on, number 4, Gaia's Cradle. Very similar to Craterhoof Behemoth, Gaia's Cradle asks you to do one thing, which is have a bunch of creatures in play. But everyone knows that creatures are trash, and the creatures they've been printing over the last 2 years are absolutely awful, so you probably just don't have any creatures in play ever. Which means Gaia's Cradle is going to tap for literal 0 mana. It's so bad that you might as well run Temple of the False God in place of Gaia's Cradle instead, because at least once you have 5 lands, that will make you 2 mana. But on the random off chance that you're able to make 10 mana on turn 3, everyone only plays 1 and 2 drops in their decks these days, so you don't actually need 10 mana, because people don't actually play the type of cards that you would want 10 mana to cast these days. Moving on, number 3, Cyclonic Rift. So the biggest problem with Cyclonic Rift is that it's never not correct to just overload a Cyclonic Rift, and Magic is a game about choices, and this card gives you no choice but to just overload a Cyclonic Rift. So while you're sitting around watching all of your opponents do a bunch of fun stuff, you're just going to be sitting back on 7 mana and saying, well, I guess I have to play a Cyclonic Rift now. Moving on, number 2, Vampiric Tutor. Vampiric Tutor may allow you to search your library for any card you want at instant speed for 1 mana, but it does cost 2 life. And in 600 games, do you know how many people I've seen lose because they cast a Vampiric Tutor at 2 or less life? At least 1 person. That means you have a 1 in 600 chance to die to your own Vampiric Tutor upon casting it. The other thing too is that I was on Twitter the other day, and based on the conversations I saw, I'm pretty sure tutors are going to get banned from Commander entirely. And if that happens, Vampiric Tutor is going to be worthless, so I'd probably just toss it in the dumpster right now. Moving on, my number 1 most overrated card is Manikrip. So I totally get it, Manikrip makes you a bunch of extra mana way earlier than it should. But you're also going to lose 7 flips in a row, so it's going to do at least 21 damage to you. And similarly to Vampiric Tutor, in 600 games, do you know how many people have died to Manikrip? Probably at least 10, which means you have like a 1 in 60 chance of dying to your own Mana Crypt. Like this one really interesting time where someone stole another player's Mana Crypt, and the owner of that Mana Crypt cast a Fiery Emancipation, so all of their damage was tripled. So I killed the player with their Mana Crypt, giving them back control of their Mana Crypt. They lost the flip on their upkeep, took 9 damage, and lost the game. So that definitely means that 100% of the time you will die to your own Mana Crypt, which really just makes it not worth running. Alright, so if you guys haven't figured it out, this is an April Fool's video. April Fools. For those that have been following the channel for a while, you'll know that I'm not a big fan of the overrated card videos. I think the concept of that style of video started in an honest place, and over time I think they've kind of become a weird way to like prey on the negativity of the Magic community sometimes, so I'm not a big fan of overrated card videos, because the reality is, some cards are very good in some decks and some settings, and less good in other decks and other settings. And I think it's kind of ridiculous to just make blanket statements of, you should never run this card, because you can play the sorcery version of that card for 1 less mana, but the sorcery version isn't on a creature body that you can recur. Except it turns out the creature body is way better than being a sorcery because of all the stuff you can do with it in Commander. Anyway, so yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the overrated card video. What you can do if you want is rewatch this video from the lens of the 5 cards that I would probably ban in Commander if I were in charge. Now, lucky for some of you, I'm not in charge, so none of this is about to happen, but if I were in charge, I would probably ban these or at least have a really long conversation about it. Anyway, short video today. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I hope you enjoyed the April Fool's joke. Be sure to comment, like, and subscribe, and as always, thank you for watching. I want to thank my awesome Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome. If you want to help support the channel and vote on which decks I play next, feel free to check out my Patreon, link below.